more like supplementing the drama in our lives.
Welcome back to the final video of Notes on Process and Reality. We will cover Part 4 and Part 5 in the same video. Starting with Part 4, The Theory of Extension, Chapter 1, Coordinate Division. Section 1. Satisfaction is divided into satisfaction qua genetically and qua coordinately. The division of concrescence is genetic, and the division of the concrete is the coordinate. Concrescence does not happen in physical time, but coordination does. Quote, the actual entity is the enjoyment of a certain quantum of physical time. End of quote. This quantum is an extensive region of space and time. Concrescence presupposes this extension. Coordinate division is division of feelings which might be, but not feelings which are. A standpoint on the extension is called an extensive quantum. Section 2. The standpoint sits in a subregion of the extensive region. Its coordinate division is a genetic contrast with two components, the superject actual entity and the proposition or the potency of the superject. False propositions applied to certain special topics may derive true propositions. Section 3. To define a point in the extension cannot be defined by duration because duration has the property of a point. Section 4. A medium is needed for perception of subregions from a standpoint. The medium cannot determine what is transmitted, but it does determine the conditions for which all transmissions must conform. This is the systematic scheme of real potentiality. How much of this theory of extension is metaphysically ultimate, and how much of it is only a recent order of this cosmic epoch or some antecedent cosmic epoch is not known, but some general character of coordinate divisibility is probably metaphysically ultimate. Quote, the extensiveness of space is really the spatialization of extension, and the extensiveness of time is really the temporalization of extension. Physical time expresses the reflection of genetic divisibility into coordinate divisibility. End of quote. Not only is space itself a unique addition of extension, but its three dimensions are unique too. It could have been any number of dimensions. The seriality of time is just as unique as an addition to. Section 5. The superject is the actual entity as public to the actual world, a moment of passage from decided public fact to a novel public fact. That is a coordinate. The subject is the actual entity as a private self-employment of self-creation in process. An eternal object refers itself publicly as a universal, but enjoyed privately as a quality. Every prehension is a prehension qua public and qua private. The public side is the prehension of the datum public, and the private side is constituted by subjective forms. Prehensions are born privately and take on public careers. Section 6. An eternal object has three primary modes of ingression. First is ingression of a nexus or an actual entity. Second is ingression of a subjective form. And third is ingression as a datum of a conceptual or propositional feeling. This last mode is the conceptual valuation of the potential ingression of one of the other two modes. Still, it is a real ingression. The two species of eternal objects are of the objective kind and of the subjective kind. Objective eternal objects only ingress in the first mode, What it does is it introduces an actual entity or a nexus into the real internal constitution of another actual entity. Whitehead calls the objective species the Platonic mathematical forms. Quote, a member of the subjective species is, in its primary character, an element in the definiteness of the subjective form of a feeling. End of quote. Moving on to section 7. An actual entity functions as an efficient cause for coordinate division. Now moving on to chapter 2, extensive connection. And we're going to skip section 1 and move on to section 2. Section 2, if a subregion A extensively connects with a subregion B, B is also connected with A. These connections are mediate. Connections only connect two regions and no more. Two regions are mediately connected when they are both connected with a third region. A includes or is a part of B when every region connected with B is also connected with A. When one region includes another, the two regions are connected. Inclusion is transitive. Inclusion is asymmetrical. A includes B, but B does not include A. Every region includes other regions. An overlap between two regions happens when a third region is included in both A and B. An overlap is also a connection. A dissection is a set of regions with all of its members included with A or any given region, but not a member of the set overlaps with another or includes another member. Any region has many dissections, unique to that region, and no other region. When two overlapping regions have an intersect, it is either included in both A and B, or it is one of the two regions and is included in the other. A unique intersection is one lonely intersect of two regions. If there are more intersects, it is a multiple intersection. An external connection lacks an overlap. A tangenic inclusion is when B is included in A and no third region is externally connected with both A and B. Moving on to section 3. When any two members of a set of regions have inclusions, or has inclusions, of the other non-tangentically, with no region included in any of the members, we have an abstractive set. When an abstractive set A covers abstractive set B, all members of abstractive set A includes some members of abstractive set B. There is a serial order to members of an abstractive set, from biggest to infinitely smaller regions. Or I guess another way of saying it is that we start from somewhere and then we get infinitely smaller because there is really no infinitely big. You can't get to the biggest because it's all infinite. Anyways, abstractive set A covering abstractive set B makes them equivalent. Quote, a geometrical element is a complete group of abstractive sets equivalent to each other and not equivalent to any abstractive set outside of the group. End of quote. Geometrical element A is incident in geometrical element B when every member of geometrical element B covers every member of geometrical element A, but geometrical element A and geometrical element B are not identical. When a geometrical element has no incident in it, it is a Euclidean point. A geometrical element is prime when its members satisfies conditions assigned to them without incident. Quote, an abstractive set, which is a member of a point, will be called punctual. When a geometrical element has points incident in it, it is called a segment. with its points called endpoints. A segment has only one pair of endpoints. Moving on to section 4. A point is situated in a region when the region is a member of one of the punctual abstractive sets which compose that point. A point situates on the surface of a region when other situated regions overlap but not include that region. A complete locus is one of the following three. First is the volume, which is the set of all situated points in a region. Then we have the surface, which is the situated points. And then the linear stretch, which is all the points incident in a geometrical element. In this meanings of words, the volume is 4-dimensional, the surface is 3, and the linear stretch is 1. Moving on to chapter 3, flat loci. We're going to start off section 1 with a quote. Extension is a form of relationship between the actualities of a nexus. A point is a nexus of actual entities with a certain form, and so is a segment. End of quote. Euclidean geometry says a straight line is any line which lies evenly with the points on itself. Modern geometry says the shortest distance between the 2 points is a straight line. The former claims measurement presupposes straight lines, the latter in the converse. Whitehead explores the ovate. I think that's how you pronounce it. I think it's pronounced the ovate. The ovate abstractive set. This abstractive set is an abstractive set whose members all belong to the complete ovate class. Under consideration, the ovate class is the class of regions called ovals. The class is defined by enumerating all the properties of each oval member. So, as we continue on, I just want to say that I don't know why Whitehead is so obsessed with ovals as so important, but he does take it so important in his metaphysics of geometry, I guess. The ovate class is identified when 2 conditions are satisfied as belonging to. First condition is the non-abstractive group, and the second is the abstractive group. We're going to have to read a little bit of section 2, I think. This is page 304 of the corrected edition. First, we're going to cover the conditions of the non-abstractive group. Quote, 1. Any 2 overlapping regions of the ovate class has a unique intersect, which also belongs to that ovate class. 2. Any region not a member of the ovate class overlaps some members of that class with multiple intersections. 3. Any member of the ovate class overlaps some regions not of that class with multiple intersections. 4. Any pair of members of the ovate class which are externally connected have their surfaces touching either in a complete locus of points or in a single point. 5. Any region not belonging to the ovate class is externally connected with some member of that class so as their surfaces touch in a set of points which does not form a complete locus. 6. Any member of the ovate class is externally connected with some region not of that class so as their surfaces touch in a set of points which does not form a complete locus. 7. Any finite number of regions are jointly included in some member of the ovate class. 8. If A and B be members of the ovate class, and A include B, then there are members of the class which include B and are included in A. 9. There are dissections of every member of the ovate class, which consist wholly of members of that class, and there are dissections consisting wholly or partly of members not belonging to that class. And now, to quickly cover the abstractive set, that was just us covering the non-abstractive set. Among the members of any point, there are ovate abstractive sets. If any set of 2 or of 3 or of 4 points be considered, there are abstractive sets prime in reference to the twofold condition. A, of covering the points in question, and B, of being equivalent to an ovate abstractive set. 3. There are sets of 5 points such that no abstractive set exists prime in reference to the twofold condition, A, of covering the points in question, and B, of being equivalent to an ovate class. Of an ovate abstractive set, I mean. Section 3. We are only concerned with the one and only ovate class we know of in the extensive continuum of this present cosmological epoch. If two abstractive sets are prime in reference in covering a given group of points and being equivalent to some ovate abstractive set, then they are equivalent. Quoting from page 305, this is Whitehead's proof for this point. The two abstractive sets are either equivalent to the same ovate abstractive set or to different ovate abstractive sets. In the former alternative, the required conclusion is obvious. In the latter alternative, let God, I don't know what the fuck that symbol is. I believe it's the Greek alphabet mu. So let mu and v be the two different ovate abstractive sets. Each of these sets, mu and v, satisfies the twofold condition. We may have to prove that they are equivalent to each other. Let M and N be any regions belonging to mu and v, respectively. Then, since the convergent proportions of the abstractive sets belonging to the various points of the given group must ultimately consist of regions all lying in M and all lying in N, it follows that M and N intersect. But being oval, M and N have only one intersect, and all the points in question must be situated in it. Also, this intersect is oval. Hence, by selecting such intersects, a third abstractive set can be found which satisfies the twofold condition and is covered both by mu and by v. But since mu and v are prime in reference to this condition, they are both of them equivalent to this third abstractive set. Hence, they are equivalent to each other. End of quote. All abstractive sets primed belong to one geometrical element. If this geometrical element is defined by a set of 2 points, it is called a straight segment between those endpoints. This is a type of flat geometrical element. A flat geometrical element has multiple points in its set. In itself, a flat geometrical element has a locus of points making up the content of that element called a flat locus. Section 4. Two actual entities are contiguous when the regions constituting their standpoints are externally connected. Quote, a pair of ovals can only be externally connected in a complete locus or in a single point. End of quote. Each immediate transmission from one antecedent actual entity to the successive actual entity is on a route of successive quanta of extensiveness, which are basic regions of these successive continuous occasions. Damn, it's too hot today. It's too hot in my room. Section 5. Organic realism is that position unique from materialism, idealism, and dualism. It displaces materialism and its notion of static stuff with fluent energy. We can also call this pan-experientialism or panpsychism, but he didn't call that in the book. But, I've said those terms before, pan-experientialism before, so organic realism is another term for that. And honestly, I'm kind of digging it. Maybe I'll just switch to only using the term organic realism. Kind of rolls off the tongue very well. Chapter 4. Strains. Section 1. Quote, a feeling in which the forms exemplified in the datum concerned geometrical, straight, and flat loci will be called a strain. End of quote. Strains are felt by high-grade actual occasions. The geometrical seat is composed of a set of points belonging to the volume defining the standpoint of the experient subject. Each strain has a seat. Section 2. In satisfaction, that component expressed as a feeling of withness of the body may be isolated for analysis. The body's organs of sensation is the objective datum of a component feeling with its own subjective form, termed bodily efficacy. We now look for the eternal object as a determinant of the body. This eternal object is partially identified with the eternal object of presentational immediacy. Both are complex eternal objects. This eternal object is analyzable into a sense datum and a geometrical pattern. The feeling of bodily efficacy is a reenaction of an antecedent feeling in the body. Both feelings have highly analogous state of strain. This strain involves a geometrical region, which involves itself with a focal region, which is a region of dense congruence of straight lines defined by the seat. A double act of transmutation is achieved in the integration of the feelings making up bodily efficacy, which concerns two regions, the seat and the focal region. The many transmissions of bodily efficacy converge upon the focal region for the final deliverance of presentational immediacy for the ultimate precipitant. Moving on to section 3. A high-grade organism negatively prehends irrelevancies from its environment for elucidation of systematic order. It designs its own contrast from this suppression of the mere multiplicities of things. An actual entity of a recipient nexus are objectified in the precipitant subject, but there is an equal demand of transference to their own nexus. The same nexus which should be the recipient of the other transference. There is a struggle of competing qualities, which results in attenuation and elimination. This difficulty may vanish if the recipient is contemporary with the precipitant. The recipient has yet to be objectified, in other words. Quote, presentational immediacy, actually I'm not going to make it a quote, but it's kind of a quote, quasi-quote. Presentational immediacy yields no direct experience about the contemporary world, but it does yield experience which express how the contemporary world has in fact emerged from its own past. End of quote. And so, quote, presentational immediacy works on the principle that it is better to obtain information about the contemporary world, even if occasionally it be misleading. End of quote. As opposed to other attentions that an actual entity could pay attention to, of course. Moving on to section 4. Quote, a duration is a complete locus of actual occasions in unison of becoming or in concrescent unison. End of quote. Quote, a historic route of actual occasions, each with its present duration, constitute a physical object. End of quote. Henry Bergson is wrong to say spatialization is a distortion of the intellect. And in my own words, I have to say, Whitehead is affirming the primacy of existence, because spatialization, quote, is a real factor in the physical constitution of every actual entity belonging to the life history of an enduring physical object, end of quote. Moving on to Chapter 5, Measurement, Section 1. An associated pair of strain locus and duration do not involve themselves in the same extensive region, though the divergence may be negligible for conscious perception. Section 2. Presentational immediacy displays the real extensiveness of the contemporary world, but not contemporary actualities. It does involve contemporary actualities, but only by objectifying them as conditioned by extensive relations. Section 3. As opposed to René Descartes and John Locke, who held the physical world was independent to any mental operations, in essence, for Alfred North Whitehead, it is inextricably intertwined. Quote, It is the function of mentality to modify the physical participation of eternal objects. End of quote. Section 4. Is measurement an approximation to infinitesimals? No, since everything is actually finite. Instead, approximation is introduced in our supposition as to the measuring tool. Section 5. The nature of a straight line is its inclusion of points and possibility of mutual intersection in a single point. Now, I have to say that Whitehead says these are the only relevant properties of a straight line. That is a direct quote. Only relevant properties of a straight line. So I have to say, is straightness itself not relevant? Perhaps that's an axiom, not, quote, exclusive reference to the intersection of straight lines, end of quote, but then I would still disagree anyways. But Section 6, again, infinitesimals don't actually exist. That's basically the summary of that. Now, we're moving on to Part 5. Part 5, which is called Final Interpretation. Chapter 1, The Ideal Opposites. Section 1. The danger philosophy faces is narrow-mindedness to evidence evaded in selection by an arbitrary bias and limitation of thought. Skipping section 2 and moving on to section 3, quote, the art of progress is to preserve order amid change, and to preserve change amid order, end of quote. Order itself is insufficient. Novelty saves order from degeneration into mere repetition, but also order gives novelty a system to be expressed. Section 4. Evil is the fact immediacy is obligated to fade into the past. Chapter 2. God and the World. Section 1. God, as in the creator of the world, is the fallacy of Christianity. Quote, when the Western world accepted Christianity, Caesar conquered, and the received text of Western theology was edited by his lawyers. End of quote. Quote, the church gave unto God the attributes which belonged exclusively to Caesar. End of quote. Section 2. God in the philosophy of organism does not refer to any religions as they are or ought be or might be. Quote, God is not to be treated as an exception to all metaphysical principles invoked to save their collapse. He is their chief exemplification. End of quote. God does not come before creation. He rather comes with creation. God is the lure for feeling and the eternal urge of desire. Section 3. God's consequent nature is his reaction to the world, becoming of unison with every creative act. Quote, he shares with every new creation its actual world. End of quote. God is dipolar, just like any other actual entity, with his conceptual pole being the primordial nature, or God's character, and his physical pole being the consequent nature, or God's reaction or consciousness. God's conceptual pole is devoid of all negative prehensions. It is all positive prehensions. It is an infinite experience. Section 4. Instead of creating the world, he saves the world with tender, loving care and endless patience by his vision of truth, beauty, and goodness. Section 5. Greek, Hebrew, and Christian thought are all guilty of making God static and separate from us in many ways. God is at once one and many, and so is the world. Quote, for God, the conceptual is prior to the physical. For the world, the physical poles are prior to the conceptual poles. End of quote. Section 6. Eternal objects are existence by virtue of their conceptual realization of God. Otherwise, they lack any existent character. Section 7. God, in his function of the kingdom of heaven, is a consequent nature composed of a multiplicity of elements with individual self-realization. Quote, "What is done in the world is transformed into a reality in heaven, and the reality in heaven passes back into the world. By reason of this reciprocal relation, the love in the world passes into the love in heaven, and floods back into the world. In this sense, God is the great companion, the fellow sufferer who understands." End of quote. And with that concludes all videos of notes on process and reality. This was really, really, really good book. I think the only criticism that I have is how hard it is to understand it, and there's many aspects of it which I don't fully grasp, but that's okay. You know, that's a skill issue. So I really do enjoy this book. You know, Alfred North Whitehead, he cooked.